Call this meeting of the West Branch Planning and Zoning Commission to order. And Adam has kindly agreed to take over our secretarial duties for the evening, so if you'll call the roll.
It has been taken.
There you go. We've decided everything already.
Yep.
So,
Go for it.
well, I was expecting you to do that sort of thing, so we'll see here or not here, whatever.
I can see everybody.
Okay, well, let the minutes then show that James Hoffman's not here. Sally Peck is showing up. And
Hey, Sally.
Lauren Walsh is ill tonight, right? Okay.
Are you helping?
Maybe. I don't know. I'll tell you after I get tested.
Oh, no. I appreciate that.
After I cough on you a few times.
Yeah,
I'll let
that
you know.
too.
Yeah.
Send you a bill.
We have a proposed agenda in front of us, so if everyone has that to take a look at. And I would seek approval of that agenda. Second?
I second.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye.
So where is
Aye.
Okay. None of opposition. The first item is to take a look at our minutes from last
Yeah,
meeting.
there you go.
And that set of minutes looked fine to me, with one exception. I see that Bowers motion for approval on the Meadows subdivision plat, and he also seconded. And as I recall, I did the seconding, but anyway, so the minutes could perhaps show that. So I think that that's the only change. First item on the public hearing and the agenda is to look at the final plat for Parkside Hills, second edition, and to decide if we see that as appropriate or have any suggestions for change to make. Well, we have that final plat application in front of us, and all the various elements that are supposed to be taken care of then. So is there anything to be said?
You get a motion to approve the minutes, or am I just behind?
Okay, all those in favor of the minutes from last meeting?
Motion.
I made the motion and Sally approved it. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? No. Okay, there we go.
I
I
didn't
got
get
it.
it.
Oh, we are sometimes. So about Parkside Hills, anything to be said?
Any questions?
Yeah,
Didn't change anything from the last one.
well, that's what I wanted to ask about.
Yep.
Because in the minutes last time, I was asking about bicycle parking.
Yep, and we will be submitting the drawing for that. Actually, I went over that today, and we have
Okay.
incorporated that into the building, which is coming forward over the next probably week or two. We'll be submitting that for the actual structure of going on that lot. So,
Okay.
yep, and
Good to hear.
we did incorporate that.
That's marvelous.
Yep.
The idea is to make it a walkable place, and bicycling is essentially the same sort of thing. So easy to get into town.
Yeah, yeah, so we'll have that on the submittal when we submit for what is now lot 1 and the building that's on that. We'll have all that in there, so.
Mhm. Any questions by anyone?
So are we talking a walking or biking on the same spot?
Yeah, the idea is that this is going to be a development that is going to be conducive, that is going to be compatible with, it's going to be useful for people who want to walk, people who want to bicycle.
Specific to
But
park.
I'm just saying, what, are they gonna be will be in the same space? In other words,
I
a
assume so,
bike
but,
trail and a walking path at the same time.
Well, it's not a bike trail, it's a bike. It was we'll have when we submit the next plot or the building on the plot, we'll have the sidewalks there typical, but we were asked to put a bike parking area.
Oh,
And so we're gonna do a bike rack in that area up next to the commercial building.
so where would, okay.
So we'll submit that in the next plat that comes out with the building on it. So
I mean, I'm not against biking. I don't bike because I don't like to sit on those seats, but.
They do have new designs.
No. But sometimes people who are biking on the sidewalk aren't particularly careful about the walkers on the sidewalks.
this is just for parking.
Oh.
So, yep.
Oh,
In this development, I'm sure they're using streets.
in this
Been here
area.
Last week, you know.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
I'm kidding.
yes, I would know. If I did.
I'm kidding.
As you as well.
Being a smart aleck, right?
You are.
Okay, I'll seek a motion then for approval of this final plat.
A motion to approve.
That,
Second.
That does, and Brad seconds it. I think we can have a voice vote on this one. All of us in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? None? It passes, and thanks for coming. Okay, the next is a little bit different, and this is a temporary concrete plant that's going to be put in for all these new developments that are going on. Well, that's the second item, item B on the agenda, 4B. And we've been given plans for this, and it's been reviewed by not only the engineer, but also Matt for our Public Works. And number of questions were raised, and we have answers to those questions. And I hope you had a chance to see those in the packet. But this activity is going to be taking place this August, and then in the next year in June through August. So we will have a temporary cement plant.
I can't tell from looking at this. Where's that?
Right across. from
Oh, okay, gotcha.
In the Q and A, they said that they're
South of town.
at peak hour, they could be 240 loads out, 160 loads in.
I saw that, and that seemed a little bit odd.
Somewhere
right?
along the line, there was some confusion between the question and the answer. I'm Tom Schmidt with Kroll,
Okay,
and so I've readjusted those numbers. And if you wanted to write them in, with the cold weather, we're gonna get pushed back a little bit this year, so it'll be July, probably July, August, into September. And then next year will be the same time frame, June through August, probably, because hopefully it's a little warmer, a little earlier. The trucks in and out site per day would be 180 loads coming in, 260 going out. That's for the daily. And then for the hourly, it'd be 20 out and 15 loads in.
Sounds much more
Not the
reasonable.
240 and the 160, that's a. If we could do that, yeah, we wouldn't have to be there quite as long. I guess. But we'll have hard rock entrances, we'll have the site rock. So we're not dragging stuff out in the street, if you drag stuff out in the street, we're gonna have a broom there on site, we'll have skid loader on site. We'll keep that clean, we've been doing this for 20+ years, paving, so we're used to all sorts of different sites, all sorts of different cleaning rules, regulations. We've got air and water permits in place already that have been approved by the DNR. So we're just kind of waiting on approval from the city. We do that just in, in case the site is approved. We've got those hurdles already taken care of. We set plans, we set anywhere from 10 to 15 sets a year. And so this isn't anything new for us or from our end. I think we're good at it. I think we'll be good neighbors. We've got a ready-mix plant in town, so we're kind of going to have to be good neighbors since we're in town here. And if you have any other questions, I can certainly try to answer.
Well, you see, you worked with Matt to find a better way in and out,
Yes,
and that looks very desirable.
we'll do the 2 driveways, and I know there's been some talk about putting some, what we don't want to do is destroy that street, so we'll probably put some aprons out front. So when when we go from the rock to the concrete, we're not tearing the street up, breaking the street up, we'll break the aprons up first. And those will be removed, or they can stay depending on if the owner, would want them to stay, or if he wants everything cleaned up. But at the end, the site will be completely tore out, as far as we know, until the owner decides what he wants to do. It's Lockstead, Andy Lockstead. So, but if he tells us get it back the way it was in the grass field, that's what we do.
I'm glad to hear you're going to have the aprons because those are pretty heavy,
Yeah.
short wheelbase trucks. So,
Well, we're driving all quints, so we can.
oh, okay.
We've got 6 axles.
That helps.
How many loads do you see coming off and through from the quarry to the ready mix site? Is that going to be a pretty regular throughout the season, kind of daily occurrence, or?
That'll be, we'll preload the plant with a couple thousand, 3,000 ton of rock and sand. And then, we'll haul in to keep up and deplete as we get done.
How
We're
many?
gonna do like we're gonna do triple H.
Those load, that load count was included in the numbers he was talking about.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
To do 2,500 cubic yards a day, where I just backed the map out and figured side dumps mostly are gonna be hauling or end dumps. And they'll haul anywhere from 23 to 25 tons.
Okay, okay.
Yes,
So this is for an interstate project?
Interstate and for Herbert Hoover,
we're doing them both.
yes. And we're doing the roundabouts up on the interstate also, so it's 3 jobs kind of tied all into one.
And if you guys get more, I'm assuming this is just the first phase of the interstate project. There's probably more phases left to be bid. Is that
At
correct?
some point in time, they're gonna bid the next 5 miles or 8 miles to West Branch and get that expanded, but that, I don't know if that's in the 5-year or not.
What I was getting to is if that plant would stay up longer, if it was, if you guys got the next job after that.
And that's,
Leave it in place
yeah,
longer than
there would
2
be
years.
a ton of ifs there. But I really not in a position to answer. We'd have to get the job first, I guess.
Probably need to see what the length of the project was too.
Correct.
This may not be the optimal place to put it.
Correct.
Okay, well, are there any staff questions or questions of anyone else?
How large are the diesel fuel tanks? And where will they be located at? Are they gonna be up next to the building?
Put 6,000 gallon tanker there. But it'll all be enclosed, or not enclosed, but the double wall, just like a falling tanker.
Okay. And that'll be where at on the lot, towards the back or?
In that cluster.
in the cluster?
We've already looked at,
Well,
we've already looked at getting a tank to put at our ready mix. Also, we've gotten quotes for a 10,000 gallon tank. But it's like everything else, the price is going up.
yeah, oh, yeah.
And,
Mhm.
so I haven't got the word yet, but we're working on that also. So the fuel barrel could possibly be at the ready.
And our fuel needs to be a lot smaller if the site's approved for temporary use. We kind of plan on talking to the power company and hardwire and power off the line instead of running a generator all the time. This just makes sense, and we'd like to approach the city of West Branch also about buying water out of the hydrant. In that corner, there's a hydrant, we could run water directly to the plant. And, put double backflow, we've got basically set up, we hook right out of the hydrant. It's got a double backflow preventer. We're used to getting water from cities, so we've kind of got a whole system set up where we've got everything covered there too.
Sounds sensible, save on diesel and the water be much more available than trucking it in. So, okay, any more questions?
Terry, did you just have concern with runoff?
No, there's specific allowable amounts, tank sizes, I should say, in comparison to where the building's located. I think right up next to a building, I think you can only put 1,100 gallons. And once you get over that, then it spaces out, you know, and then we gotta keep it so
Yeah,
far.
we put one at the Planet Street, I think it's 40 or 50,
Yeah.
but I don't think
But if we,
that's the same as this.
Okay.
and if we end up with hard power though, we wouldn't need that tanker next to our plant. You wouldn't have a generator there. So that, if that was a concern, we could park that tank anywhere on the site and fuel our trucks that way.
Or we could put it across the street. Would be a lot easier, would be easier if we can get power to the plant. Then we can just have it at the ready mix plant.
Right.
Okay, well, I think that we're to the point of being able to make a motion. Maybe a motion for approval or otherwise.
Motion.
And a second? Okay. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, very good. A couple of years worth of projects.
Yeah.
Keep you busy.
It'd be nice when it's done, right?
Yeah, it's a fact.
Until then, we'll fight until then.
Can't wait till it's done. Already a pain in the butt.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item is the preliminary plat for the Meadows Part 5. And we've received information about that. It's been reviewed by the city engineer. I think without, let's see, too many questions except for street lighting. And I think there was a question about the length of one of the blocks, maybe a mid-block crossing there. I assume that's been taken care of as well. And I don't know about the erosion control plan or the stormwater management. So Brian, would you? Okay, Chris, tell us more.
So the mid-block crossing is fine. Dave had that suggestion, so we can add that. Also, street lights have been added, and I don't know if you have that latest map, but there's actually 3 that will go in. And if I can read the small letters. There's one on outlot, so right by outlot A.
Okay,
There's one there. There is one between lots 20 and 21 on the south side of the street. And then another one at the intersection.
mhm,
So there'd be 3 on that side of the street. And then there is a 4th one on Prairie View, but it's in our previous part. So it's right on the line between part 4 and this part 5. So 3 new streetlights would be needed, and that's fine with that too. So there's some other questions. We need a variance for the street grade.
what is it?
Your code only allows for 5%. And we have one spot by lot 18 where it says it's 6.9, right about 7%. And our other 2 streets, which would be Orange Street and Sullivan, one of those is at 8 and one is at 7. So they've been approved in the past in that same area. And then also there's an issue with the street width. So on the west side, where we connect to Prairie View, that's 29 feet wide, that street. But on the east side, where it connects to Lathan Ridge, I guess they're at 31 feet. So we need to discuss, is 29 feet okay to continue what we've done in the past, or do we need to go with 31, which is the the next subdivision over.
Why is that there, that distinction?
I guess I don't know why they went with 31 other than I don't know if they wanted wider streets because their lots are narrower. I'm not quite sure what their thinking was. when
If
they
I
had-
recall, the discussion was about street parking with the narrow lots and a need for more off-street parking.
Okay. All right.
Would 29 foot allow for street parking on both sides?
Oh, no,
No.
I'm quite sure not.
No, probably just one, like
On one side.
Scott Drive is 29 feet, I
Scott.
believe. And
Okay.
they have parking on one side.
We'll say, yep.
Sullivan Street is 29, which is the next block south.
Okay.
And then I assume it's one, one side only, but I can't, verify that off the
I
top of
think
my
you're
head.
right.
Yeah.
To see what changes.
You know. And so you're saying Lathan Ridge is 31 feet,
Yes.
and that still wouldn't accommodate cars on both sides, right? Or would it?
I think it can if the city
very, very
wants to
close.
allow that.
Narrow
I
cars,
see.
skinny cars?
Only skinny cars. No pickups.
Okay.
So the issue is, can we say stay at 29 feet, but then where do we make that transition? And I think that's something that Dave could probably help you think about if we end up that way, are we going to transition on the west side or on the east side or somewhere in between? So the engineers would have to help us with that. Then we do have an outlot A to collect stormwater. Right now, it's set to be an outlot A, which would be run by an association. But I'm not sure if the engineers have decided, is that big enough, too big? So I think there's still that discussion needs to be had. But that's me saying that. They might tell you different.
I think that's why we have a comment about best management practices.
Then also there's an issue, if you look on lots 19 through 23, there on this map has a 20-foot easement on the back of the lot.
Mhm.
And that all stems from how much runoff is going to be coming down this area. So this is our part 5. So in part 2, the layout is the same. But we were required at the time to put in 3 bioswales down that hill. And so there's a 20-foot easement on the south side of Sullivan for the 3 bioswales. So at the time, we were going to do a 10-foot easement on the north of those Sullivan Street lots, which that's in place. And then we were to do a 10-foot easement on the south side of these Prairie View lots. But we haven't ironed that out, I guess, with our engineers or with Dave, but I'm sure they can help us through that. The bioswales were designed to slow down the speed of the water going down the hill and try to, it infiltrates a little bit underground where there's rock and sand to kind of clean up the quality of the water too. And then there's native plants above that, which the city is taking over the maintenance of those. And I don't think they work as well as designed. So we're not suggesting putting those in here, but I just bring it up because of the 20-foot, 10-foot thing and the history kind of on the area.
Done.
That too much?
No, not at all, not at all.
I got 5 things you're asking for direction on: grade, street width, on bioswale, then I know there's a comment on whether it's single family or zero lot. Technically, you can, the way it's set up right now, you can do both. I don't know if that's your intent or.
It's zoned R2. We've been through you guys once before, and we zoned it R2. Our intent right now is that it would be 0 lots. But it's not guaranteed. We know of one person already that wants to buy it and keep it single family. So I could see a mix, but again, the intent is the 0 lots.
For street width, I kind of asked questions about it too and why it changed. I don't know what the previous discussions were, but in the subdivider agreement, it's technically 29 feet on Milton Ridge. So either we put it wrong in the development agreement, we told you wrong, or your contractor put it in wrong. So one of those three things happened. So in terms of it going, the difference between 29 and 31 feet, as I was talking with Terry, about to forget your name. So I was talking with Terry, the one issue I have with just the general argument on parking on both sides of the street is typically what we've been doing the last year or last couple months since I've been here. Anytime there's fire hydrants, we don't allow parking on that side of the street, just to the access to get there. So I don't know if we will, in theory, even enforce it being parking on both sides of on the street. As we talk a little bit more with design standards, when we get further in those discussions, if West Branch wants to be a more walkable town, if it wants to be more fiscally responsible, the wider our roads are, typically you're going to have people subconsciously drive faster. It's harder to cross the street. It's more maintenance on the city. It adds cost to developers. Outside of we want more parking, I don't know if there are any more pros. There's more drainage runoff. So the fact that it's transitioning to 29 regardless, I think it should be 29 from the staff perspective. And I think Dave would be able to comment more on when that transition should start. The bioswale stuff designed as well, and Chris put it nicely, but we don't really have the staffing capacity on the public works side to go in these backyards and maintain these bioswales. And from the city's perspective, even though we're growing, it's not getting any easier. There are state revenue changes that are affecting our budget. We've had to cut back this year. I've had to cut a contract position and I had to cut a part-time position. And that was, any more cuts would have been a full-timer. So I guess my point is, I don't want to add any more maintenance to our staff at this point until we can absorb it. And I think the idea and practice is fine. We just are not at a position where we can do all the best practices all the time. And so do I like the idea of it? Do I support it? Yes, but I don't know where that's going to fall on Public Works' list of priorities in terms of maintaining that. So that's kind of the staff perspective on those things. And I don't know, Dave, if you want to chime in on grading or pond calculations or street width, but those are just my comments.
Sure. We talked a little bit about the transition. I think we probably need to take a look at, we've got a set of double intakes by outlot A. If we did something in between those, we want to make sure that we don't disrupt how the water gets into those intakes by doing a transition right in that area before the intakes. But somewhere in between that might be appropriate. The other area that would work out well would be at the intersection if you just left it wider, but that's the majority of that street. So if the intent is to narrow the street, and we're looking at that east end at some point. The grade, we've looked at this area multiple times for each street as it goes in. And I would recommend that we allow them to go with this roughly 7% grade on the upper end. It fits the topography well and it avoids excessive grading. I agree with your assessment on the bioswales, just from seeing how things have developed since we first put those in, and would not recommend putting them in. It doesn't seem like this is the best location to try to do that. It's a little difficult to access, and as you noted, it does take staff time that makes it problematic. So that's what I was looking at when I put those comments in, just trying to make sure that we had the discussion on that, because it is slightly different than what we normally would allow.
Okay, Sally.
So, Adam, when you were talking about budgeting, is that because of what is available from the state to the city? That you've had to cut positions?
It's a,
We
yeah.
need to take a look at
it's a complicated formula, but it's also complicated with Public Works because they're funded by 5 different funds. They're funded through water fees, sewer fees, stormwater fees, road use taxes that you pay at the gas pump, but also general fund property taxes. It's general fund property taxes that we're getting slower increases is the correct term. And with inflation and everything, it's a huge cut basically to the services we're able to provide. In terms of street funding, it's all per capita. So all this growth we're seeing, it's not going to affect our street budget until a new census in 2030. So
kind of stuff.
yes. So yes, some of the state things correct, but there's a lot of other things going on too.
So would it, if it were 29 feet, would that be detrimental to the subdivision if it's 29 feet instead of 31 or whatever? 30, 20, yeah, is 29 feet detrimental as compared to 30? Overall, as far as the subdivision is concerned?
We don't
I
think
don't
so.
think so.
Of course.
I mean, that was kind of a hypothetical question. Okay, so it wouldn't be a big, you know. So are most of the street, or all the other streets 29? Pretty much?
Well, so south is Sullivan Street, that's 29. The next one south is Orange Street, which is 31. And then Dawson, which Orange Street runs into, north and south, so that one's 31. Because it was thought at the time most of the traffic would go that way on those streets. So like these up here shouldn't be so much traffic, especially since Greenview has opened up to come down this way.
You're gonna do inside parking, right?
Most likely, yes.
29 feet.
That's what we've
That's
done
the
for
next
all
one.
new streets, is it's been one side. So we haven't fully enforced it in some of those because not everything's in yet. at this point.
Really, the standard these days for low volume residential streets
Right,
is
it
more like
makes sense to-
29 feet. And you might want to go to 31 feet for ones that are slightly higher volume and serve more as collectors. I think that's what Dawson really is doing these days. You can look out your windows.
Okay,
I
so-
can too,
Yeah.
and a lot more traffic there.
Yeah, I would,
Orange the same.
I would consider like Sullivan, Prairie. I mean, they're like they're a local street, which go ahead and dump into the collector streets.
Yeah.
Which is going to be Orange, Dawson, and so forth, which then go ahead and dump into the arterial streets.
That's
And
the hierarchy.
that's exactly how it goes. And so that's how you go ahead and adjust your widths too.
Well, we've got a number of different aspects to this, and we're seeking a motion. As far as grade, the engineering recommendation is to allow the variance, it seems. And that's certainly been the case with some of the other streets in your developments. As far as the street width, I think our general discussion has been for some time that a 29-foot street width is really a better idea in a lot of ways. It's certainly less expensive for a developer than the additional 2 feet. In terms of the lights, it seems that we've got solutions with that, and fulfills what what Dave was suggesting. The other point about stormwater, I find myself not quite exactly sure what is to be done. It sounds like we've not had as much success as desired with the various swale and so forth devices or plantings that have been taking place. Does that mean we should go from a 20-foot easement to a 10-foot easement? I don't know.
That's what we would like. Of course, it just looks better to prospective purchasers. But then it still gives the city a 20-foot easement if something has to be done there in the future. If you maybe recall Peterson Valley, when our part one ran into Peterson Valley, it created a lot more water than what was going through there prior. They had some issues on their own that created problems with that water coming down. But in any event, that's what we wanted to avoid in part two and here. But at least now, so in Peterson Valley, there was no easement for the city to go up and do any kind of repairs or anything. But here you would have 10 feet on each side where the city could still get up in there and maybe do something in the future if it was needed. Dave could probably address what he thinks about the 10 and 10, but that's my take on it.
So part of that comment too has to do with the stormwater calculations and the stormwater management plan. And I think as we get closer to the construction drawings and they run through the detailed calculations, they can come up with a plan on that rear yard swale for how wide that has to be to carry the design flow. That may have some impact on the easement. And if we allow that to dictate the width of the easement, if it can be reduced upon completion of those calculations, I don't have any concern with that. I just need to see that they've sized that appropriately.
That sounds that we really have a little more in the way of investigations and calculations and so forth with that question. But the remaining ones with the cooperation of the city engineer seem to be, I think, reasonably resolved. Everyone think that to be the case? Well, therefore, I think that we are ready to move on this request for approval of the preliminary plat for part 5. And I think that we might, why don't I try a motion in this case? I think I could move for approval in consultation with the city engineer to work out any issues of stormwater. And beyond that, I think that we see ourselves fit to deal with the grade and to deal with street width and the lights. And so I move approval with the consultation of the city engineer for this preliminary plan. Motion to approve that. Any discussion?
So we're approving 29-foot wide streets.
Yes.
Okay.
All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, very good. Thank you, Chris. We'll move on to the next item, which is a little bit new and different. And Adam, since you're proposing this, why don't you tell us more about what you're suggesting with regard to design standards, something that we brought up a few meetings ago and didn't really have an answer to, but wanted to start thinking about the concept. Some of many cities have design standards. I remember learning about Santa Barbara, which essentially detailed everything you could do with any of your structures or dwelling units or anything else, right down to the required tile roofs. But I don't see us as dealing with that kind of a question. And yet, you start looking at all the new houses we have around here, and it's kind of hard to tell unless they have pretty good street numbers of them, whose is which, and much uniformity, it seems to me. So I guess turn it over to Adam and tell us about your suggestion.
Yes, so we're at obviously a weird stage here in West Branch in our growth and our history of being small historic town. And I think the right word to use is balance, which is why I don't want to necessarily copy another city's design standards. Maybe use a couple as templates, but it's clear between talking with council, you guys, member of the public. West Branch wants to stay a small historic town, and it doesn't want to necessarily be a suburb. Doesn't mean there shouldn't be suburban neighborhoods, but the way our current zoning is, the way we've been growing, it's almost exclusively been suburban on the west side. And not that it's always bad, but I think there's just a little bit of hesitancy that we don't want to be exactly like North Liberty or Tiffin or whatever. But I also want the right balance of encouraging development at the same time and finding the right sweet spot that works well for West Branch. So my proposal is just to, at this point, I just had a couple sample ideas, not even looking for suggestions at this point. I'm just looking for 2 board members on this board to meet hopefully quarterly. So maybe in the next 2, we're not going to have anything final soon. We've already got development going up. But it'd be nice to meet quarterly or every other month. Chad's volunteered, or I asked him to join us because he has some input on potentially where Iowa City went too far. And, Iowa City has good ideas too, but they are a good test for us in what works and what doesn't. So I guess I'm looking for 2 volunteers, and then it'd be nice to just have regular meetings and where to go. So then at some point we can suggest something, and I'm not looking for 20 pages like Iowa City, Dubuque or whatnot. It'd be nice for it to just be 2 or 3 pages and that's it. So
Are you contemplating some public meetings somewhere along the line too? Community input
well,
somewhere along the line. Not starting
I'm
necessarily.
hoping that the community visioning discussions took some of that, and I may get some potential online feedback. I don't want it to get too bogged down, and that's why I want 2 members to come here. We'd have to have public hearings here when we adopt something, and we'd have to have 3 public hearings at city council. So there's at least 5 meetings, basically 4 or 5 meetings for people to attend. And it just depends on time and where we're at and what the committee wants to see. But I'm hesitant to say, public for an ordinance to have a separate public workshop, but maybe we'll feel that's necessary. But at this time, I don't have a plan for like a unveiling. That's the point of having you guys in this full committee and council.
No, I'd be willing to volunteer.
I'd be interested. Everybody.
Everybody's fighting for it.
Yeah, you gotta have gender balance, so guys.
Is it something you could tie into after meeting? Like after a planning and zoning meeting?
I can, but with the committee, how large it probably will be between a staff member to you guys, the developer, possibly the mayor. You're gonna have 6 or 7 hands in it, and to add 5 more is really gonna bog it down. And I don't have any issue if we do a quarterly update for you guys to know what's going on. But that's my worry is it's hard to make something successful once you get over 5 people, and that's too many varying opinions. And I hate to say it that way, but we got to do something somewhat soon, just because once something's built, it's a 60 to 200 year thing. So not that I don't encourage involvement, not that I don't want feedback, but I also want this to happen because it's pretty clear the community wants it. And it obviously won't be perfect, but I guess that's where I stand. I don't want it to get overburdened.
Okay, well, you've got several volunteers. I guess you can pick from us and see how that works.
Or we put our names in a hat.
Pardon me?
Put the names in a hat.
Right.
I'm gonna make you guys fight for it next meeting then. So,
Write a little.
yeah,
essay.
you can,
More? More?
yeah.
I know.
To Sally's point, we do probably need a female on it, so we don't have one currently. So,
Looks like you're stuck.
so.
Works.
I thought it would be nice. We've got development background. It wouldn't be bad to have a construction background.
We got the two high ups in the commission right there.
Yeah, I can do the construction background.
Okay. Okay.
I simply bring a planning background.
Okay. We can go from there and I'll just send out meeting notices, but whether it's, and we'll need to discuss how often, but there's no way I can do monthly, we'll put it that way. So that way we're meeting regularly and things are getting done. So
Probably about the same time as the evening. more or less. Are you thinking, you're thinking anytime during the day?
we'll just see what works for
What works
everybody.
people?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And it's possible, yeah, you could do it after a meeting like this, but yeah.
Or during the day.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, we'll move on to item E, which is sign requirements for our PUDs. And this is something that we've not really faced before, but
Looking for
Paul,
input. I mean,
you're looking for input.
yeah,
Okay.
looking for whatever input we can get. I know we've got this Kroll site, the old Kroll site's PUD.
Right.
Of course, we haven't seen anything on that, so we don't know what's actually gonna go there, but I would like to have something in place when it does happen.
Well, both these PUDs are going to be primarily residential and have commercial as well. It's not similar to what you have on the south side, where we have industrial and commercial and so forth. I think that they, whatever requirements we have, probably need to be site specific to those two places in terms of being compatible with the surrounding neighborhood.
Correct. I mean, and there is going to be businesses in this PUD
Sure.
also, so I mean,
In both of
there is
them,
a sign ordinance for residential, but we have sign ordinance for commercial too, so we're
Right.
gonna have to put them together somehow. So any input would be greatly appreciated.
Site by site or case by case, if maybe the building where the sign's being applied for, if you just, whatever zoning that building would normally fit into, like if it's a commercial building, follow commercial zoning requirements for signs. I mean, it seems like that might be the most intuitive way to do it. I don't know if that's gonna catch everything, like there's an instance.
I think you're gonna see commercial on main floor, residential on second floor. I've got that feeling.
So with the,
Plus a few buildings that are going to be commercial only. But we have much more control over the PUDs.
Yeah, we do.
And so I think the compatibility with the surrounding area is something that is really key to having success.
so it's at least a PUD, the Kroll site. I mean,
Yes.
so the concept would be, okay, we want this to be consistent with, when you're talking commercial buildings, consistent with what the sign requirements are in the historic section of downtown West Branch.
Right.
And then
there's some
moving
special-
eastward rather than having it shift into some other
Yeah, I think something that would be a blend between the historic district, which has its own particular sign requirements. But they're fairly stringent and they're related to an old area of town. But ones that are not incompatible with that, not glaring neon signs and so on and so forth.
But you got a lot of older residential homes in the surrounding.
That would be my point. I'd be a little bit less stringent with regard to the other side out by the gas station. Because I think those ones that are facing on Riverside are clearly commercial. They've been
Right.
in an area that is commercial with regard to the gas station there. I'm not bothered by those being overly garish, but I think that internal to that, to the extent that they have commercial areas, that'd be another matter.
Mhm, mhm.
That's why I say site specific. And we could create two different sign ordinances that would deal with site specific PUDs. Maybe a little more effort, but,
Yeah.
Just let them submit their site
or we could do
sign
that.
plans and just give comments to the, if we think at the time when they submit them, if there's something that doesn't match the neighborhood, we can provide comments at that point, as long as they have to.
Mature it if we need to, yeah.
Okay, well, maybe that's some degree of help.
Yeah, we'll come up with something. But any, like I said, any input would be really appreciated.
Well, the next aspect is Meadows Part 3, and I think we got an update.
Yes, part 3A. So kind of recap you on where that was at with council and what happened. Obviously, you guys know there's a lot of political awkwardness between the school, the city, and previous developers on whether turn lane was required. So a couple things that council wanted that you guys didn't ask for specifically, and I didn't present them because I still am learning my footing in terms of what council's looking for. They were wanting a turn lane. They were also wanting a kind of that corner sidewalk. Then they wanted potentially some, that's the best way, at least planning for potentially the sidewalk to go close to that outlot. I don't know if you remember where that is. But between all that stuff, that developer did not want to take on those, I guess, those conditions. He dropped out, but there were interests from other developers. So there will be a new developer wanting to develop that site. They are not planning on connecting at this point. They're not planning on connecting to Main Street. I do know they want to have discussions with Dave and I first before we present a different plat to you guys. So I guess that area of town is not dead. That development and that developer that previously presented to you all will not be doing it, but you will see a different preliminary plat, hopefully in the near future. So the idea of, the gas station or whatever, convenience store and some mix, that won't happen. But we'll see what the next developer puts forward. So just letting you know, that kind of died in the water. Hopefully on the staff end, we'll do, and from the mayor end, we'll do a better job of representing what council wants. There was just so much awkwardness. And I didn't know all the history of who said what, and so.
So conceptually, are we like thinking back to just predominantly residential in that particular?
No, it's still zoned the same. It's just whether they have an entrance or not on Main Street.
As opposed to using the Cedar Johnson?
Yes, Yes, because there's about 5 or 6 what we call conflict points right next to the school. New development with, say, Dawson, but then high school added a new entrance. So that added, and then you've got more people driving there. You've got a couple more people driving along Dawson, and then you've got, say, this hypothetical new development with a convenience store, and they are connecting on, and there'd be more conflict points there. So council felt that a turn lane should have been required, and so,
On Main Street.
yep, so.
Well, we'll look forward to our next meeting in just 1 month from now.
Yep.
And maybe you'll have some.
Is that still gonna be 25 through there? Are they still gonna do that?
Yes. Yep.
25 in front of the high school. Well, it'd be nice to have all the city streets 25 and enforced. Residential ones.
Will that 25 start in Johnson County? Slow people down. Or they get to
Roundabout slow down.
West Branch.
Dave might answer that, but I'm sure you can't go more than 25 over that roundabout.
Yeah, that'll slow down.
That's been the discussion with the county, is that we would be 25 in front of the high school and they would have to reduce down to 25 before they got to the roundabout. I haven't seen the final on that, but that has been our discussion.
Then the only question is enforcing it.
What's the,
Roundabout will make it easier though.
Oh, it will. No question about that.
now is Herbert Hoover Highway itself getting widened all the way into West Branch? or
It's
what's-
being given shoulders anyway, yes. It'll be similar to what it is midway through.
Oh, okay.
It'll have a bike lane as well, right?
That's my understanding. I assume that's going to be on the south side.
It'll be graded but not paved. I don't know when that's coming, but
I mean, the shoulders.
for the bike
Yeah.
trail,
Oh,
it'll
bike
be
trail.
graded, but you know, it could be fun another 5-10 years before they start paving it. So,
I'm guessing it'll look like what's over on the new park. Just like that.
yep.
Okay, well, do we have any old business? I don't think so. City staff reports, anything?
You got anything, Terry?
Busy, busy, busy.
Only thing I got to add is everything is falling into place on the Kroll site. I'm hoping I'll have an actual discussion with council. Since we're selling land, we'll go in the closed session just to discuss those terms. But I imagine the end of May, we'll probably vote on that development agreement. There is a lot of, I guess from the developer's perspective, they're buying out quite a few of the properties there. But it's gonna be, and John's seen some of the general designs, but it's probably gonna be upwards to 70 to 90 units, depending on what can work, and there'll be a little bit of commercial with it. So hopefully in the next month, if not 3, somewhere in that time frame, you'll get preliminary plats and designs for that. So
Things are moving along. More work for Terry.
Here we go.
Okay, comments from chair and commission members. I have a comment or a question, and I don't know if Adam can answer it. But the new state law that has to do with extraterritorial zoning seems to require 2 more members of a commission from outside the city. Is that a case?
I don't know if that's been signed. I've been tracking that legislation.
Good, keep tracking it. Derail it if you can.
So I don't know if you guys are paying attention to that, but essentially the state, one of the legislatures, whether it's Senate or House, but I think it's passed both. They are recommending now that, or making it a mandate that cities have to add 2 more members on their planning and zoning commission, and they have to be rural, and one of them has to have an ag background. So pro and a con. I I guess you could have some pretty stern people that only want a certain type of housing to go in, which that part concerns me, but at the same time, they may want to preserve ag land. So they may be supportive of some smart growth principles. So it's really just gonna depend on probably who you're gonna get. So, yeah.
But does the county has a zoning?
Oh, yes.
too, okay.
It's because, well, the way the state law is written, cities have much more, they have the advantage in terms of annexing more and more. The county really has no say. If we want to, outside of the business or the property owners, they really have no say if we want to annex west of Cedar Johnson. They can just say, we agree, or we don't, but they can't say yes or no. So we can annex in the Johnson County if the landowner wanted to, and the county can't really say anything. So does that make it fair to have these people on the board? I don't know, but
Seems a little bit strange that they'd be having votes on zoning questions within the city
correct.
when they have new
Correct.
responsibilities.
That's where it becomes, that's where I worry. it will be somebody.
Also kind of hard lying to.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how do you fill those seats if you're not able to?
Somebody care. Somebody be a farmer, might live close to town.
It might be somebody who lives closer to the.
It'd be the same thing we do with gender balance. We just try. We just gotta prove we're trying. Some commissions, it's easy, like the library, it's easy to get gender balance. Some it's not. You have to try, and doesn't happen, then you can't make anybody volunteer. So, but yeah.
Okay, well, keep us surprised to that. I hope it doesn't get signed, frankly, but we'll see how that works. Our next meeting is going to be on May 24th, so it's just next month towards the end of things. And so I think that we finished with our business, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Ryan moves, Brad seconds. All those in favor, aye. Those opposed? We're adjourned.